Thanks for taking the time to listen to our latest content here on the Blood Red channel. Guy here with just a quick message. Do you want the very latest Liverpool FC news directly into your inbox? Well, then sign up to our daily LFC newsletter, which will bring you the breaking news and big events from around Anfield. To subscribe, just go to bit.ly/LFC newsletter. That's bit.ly/LFC newsletter, or click the link in the description of this podcast and pop in your email address. It really is that simple. That link once more, bit.ly/LFC newsletter. Well, thanks for your time. And on with the podcast.
This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
RIP to FFP. Dejan Lovren heading to Russia with love? Well, maybe. And Liverpool head to Arsenal, still looking to gun down that 100-point target. Welcome to the Blood Red podcast. I'm Guy Clarke. On the day we react to Man City's Champions League being overturned and the implications it could have on Liverpool. Plus, is Dejan Lovren heading for an Anfield exit? And of course, we'll preview Wednesday's game at Arsenal. Joining me to talk about all of that on a bumper-packed Blood Red podcast, the Liverpool Echo Liverpool correspondent Paul Gorst. Gorsty, how are you keeping?
Yeah, not bad, Guy. Not bad. Fresh from Saturday's frustrating draw, which I'm sure we'll talk about in detail. But can't complain, can we? It just seems like Liverpool can just want the season to end now, and I, for one, kind of agree with that. So, yeah.
The ever-fashionable Connor Dunn. Connor, how are you keeping, mate?
Very well, thank you, Guy. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, not so bad. And Theo Squires, and pleasant intro as always from yourself. How are you keeping?
Yeah, I'm keeping good. Nice weekend despite a frustrating draw. Plugging away, aren't we?
Yeah, certainly does seem to be. Liverpool battling away towards that finish on the Premier League. We'll get the action from there and look ahead to Wednesday as well, with a couple of transfer lines to get into as well this afternoon here on Blood Red. But Gorsty, just want to start on the huge news out of the Court of Arbitration for Sport today on Manchester City's Champions League ban getting overturned. They do still have a €10 million fine, and just get your initial reaction on it.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I did actually think this was going to be the one where finally UEFA would get tough and they'd see the sanctions kind of follow through. Probably a bit naive of me, wasn't it? Because I've had quite a few friends telling me over the last few months there's no chance any mistakes. City will get excited and they'll walk free and everything will be as it was. And I actually didn't think that this was the one. I thought the UEFA to hand out a 2-year suspension in the way that they did on February the 14th was a bit of a shock, and a state to say that we're finally getting tough on any club who are alleged to have breached financial fair play. So what are we, 4 months on? Court of Arbitration for Sport have ruled that actually City didn't kind of misappropriate sponsorship funds and contributions that have been coming into the club, and everything is all above board. And I think if you actually read the statement in detail from the Court of Arbitration for Sport, it kind of suggests there wasn't sufficient evidence for enough to be brought. And City will eventually have their 25 million fine reduced to 10 on the basis of them not cooperating. So, for me, I mean, it almost comes across as put the fingers in their ears and just said to UEFA, "Well, go and do your worst and see what you can find out, and we're not helping you a jot." And if that is the case, it seems to have worked a treat, doesn't it? And City will have paid that 10 fine. It was smile on the that because that was the absolute best case scenario for them today. And now they're in the Champions League for the next 2 seasons, no issues for them on that score. So it gives them something else to kind of keep their minds occupied from a Liverpool perspective. But I think that would have been a huge kind of impact for them in their ability to attract players this summer, which obviously would have had a big boost for Liverpool. So it's probably a disappointing result for Liverpool. But I say something else for them to focus on next season, instead of them just being in the Premier League and just having to focus on that. Whereas Liverpool have got to juggle, a couple of competitions.
Yeah, the Court of Arbitration for Sport then announcing that City have been cleared of disguising equity funds. UEFA's club financial control body had, as Gorsty said there, issued a ban in January, which was to be 2-year European club competition ban for Man City, and that was due to committing serious breaches of financial fair play regulations between 2012 and 2016. That 2-year ban now has been lifted, but City are still getting 10 million euros for not to cooperate with the UEFA statement. Connor, UEFA say that over the last few years, financial fair play has played a significant role in protecting clubs and helping them become financially sustainable. And the UEFA, European Club Association, remains committed to its principles. My question to you is, can they?
Yeah, well, it's a big if, isn't it, really? Because after the news today coming from CAS, it leaves a lot to be desired, financial fair play. I mean, it's a massive setback. How do you justify having those financial fair play rules when the punishments, well, they haven't even been punished for anything that UEFA had on them, charged them for, released the CAS? You had the likes of the Liga president Javier Tebas come out this morning saying that CAS isn't fit for purpose after doing this. But at the end of the day, City have got off with whatever they've done. If they have done anything at all, that is, you can't really accuse how they've been cleared. But yeah, it's massively, massively in doubt. The credibility of the financial fair play rules are, in the mud, really.
Yeah, Theo, you've been across the blog, Liverpool Echo website, seeing all of the news and reaction that has been coming in. What's your take on it? Do you think this is now the end of financial fair play?
It's a hard one to reassess because UEFA will defend the system and say, well, we think back 5-10 years ago, clubs were spending beyond their means and they're in debt, whereas now they're making a lot more money. But then it's quite simplistic to say that's because of FFP. Obviously, now there's a lot more money in, say, TV revenue, for example. That's why Premier League clubs are now reporting such financial hits. But with this, I don't think it's really that much of a surprise that City have gotten away with it, so to speak, because it had been investigated before in the past. And then it's come back on now. It's a weird one. It's always the big clubs that seem to get away with these sorts of cases. Like PSG, that was another UEFA loophole that they got away with it because UEFA wanted to go and investigate that one again. But then because they'd already not taken it further the first time, that wasn't proceeded. And when you think, well, this is an old case that they've looked at before and they've come back to us again, it wasn't really one that was going to stick. But then City are one of the richest clubs on the planet. They can't really fall out with UEFA. Like, it's almost in UEFA's benefits as well to have them in European club competition. And it's just we'll just sort it out like this. They were going to go along with it, weren't they? They weren't going to find them guilty of something. And it's almost the easy option there to go along with it. We've heard from the very beginning, Pep Guardiola wasn't worried. Manchester City players weren't worried. And it's not really a surprise. Whether it has a long-term effect for FFP, wait and see. But then clubs haven't really been properly following letter of the law for a while now. It's only like Liverpool where they won't spend beyond the means because they'll go and sell players to sort of balance the books. So you'll get the criticism along that. It's one to keep an eye on.
I think as well. I think as well. You just saying that there, Theo, about financial players. Obviously, the rules have been relaxed this summer, haven't they, because of the COVID thing and relaxing this transfer market. So I think with this result and then this next transfer market coming, where clubs can essentially spend whatever they like, and I'm sure Man City will well do. I think how can you go back from that?
Yeah, you said a lot of it predates Guardiola's time. It was looking at a period between 2012 and 2016. But Gorst, as Connor makes the point there, that last month it was only that UEFA announced that for this next year set financial records, that financial fair play won't be taken into account. Does it lead now then to maybe a rethink for Liverpool? Because Man City have a lot of rebuilding that they're going to go ahead and probably wheel out and do now. Liverpool have to all of a sudden consider their stance.
I'm not too sure, to be honest, because the two clubs are running completely different ways, aren't they? You think of Sheikh Mansour at Manchester City, they've been able to throw around about 1.5 billion at it since they were taken over in August 2008. Liverpool with FC, a completely different financial model in how they operate, particularly in the transfer window. So I don't really think Liverpool are going to be able to kind of say, oh, okay, well, if FFP is no longer a game changer, then we're going to go into the market spend upwards of 200 million because they're simply not able to. We know for so long the revenue streams have been cut off at Liverpool because of the suspension of Premier League football. There's been no TV coming in, no gatekeepers, obviously. and that does have a massive impact. It has a massive impact on every club in world football. But for clubs like Manchester City and Chelsea, who are run a certain way with a figurehead of an owner who've got pins in the back, their situation is slightly different. So I don't think this is going to force Liverpool's hand in the market, and they're going to have to pull the finger out and go and spend X amount of money on, whoever it might be, because I don't really think they're in a position. I think what it will now is embolden Manchester City to go and recruit in areas that they think they need to. And at the moment, they're 21 points behind Liverpool. So they need to do something to kind of redress that imbalance. And let's not forget, they were champions last season and spent 140 million on, Rodri was around about 60-odd million, and Angelino, and they bought another fullback whose name escapes me at the moment. They went and spent big at a time when they were already champions, at a time they'd already won the treble. So you can imagine they feel that they've got to spend this summer to kind of redress that balance against Liverpool. So Liverpool's task has been made a lot more difficult by today's decision.
Yeah, João Cancelo, that other player you were reaching for there. Connor, what's your take on it in terms of Liverpool? Not only how it impacts them in terms of Man City being able to play in the Champions League, bringing in extra revenue and therefore players, but actually, if there's no FFP, if that were to now get grabbed, what impact would that have on Liverpool and their staying power at the top of the Premier League?
I think positive for Liverpool right now is they have a plethora of the world's best players in their ranks already. They've one of the best managers in world football. They have a slew, between the front three, Trent, Van Dijk, Alisson, the list goes on, Robertson, whoever. They don't need massive wholesale changes going into next season. They don't need to go spend big in the market to carry on competing. They still are a world-class team, and they still will be competing at the top. You've got Chelsea bringing in loads of players, spending big. City probably likely to. That probably will redress the balance a little bit, but Liverpool know, City fans probably know that just because you go and spend big money, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have the best players coming in. So I don't think in the immediate term Liverpool need to worry just because of what they've got at the moment. I think as well, the point is that City are going to have to play in the Champions League, so their sole focus won't be on the Premier League next season. So they'll be fighting on all fronts the same as Liverpool will. So they'll be just as tired heading into the weekend games after playing on a Wednesday. So there's positives and negatives to it. And I think Liverpool don't need to worry too much just because of the fact of the position they're in at the moment.
Yeah, no, supporters often sort of call on FSG to spend money, and when they do, claim it's obviously from selling other assets within the squad, Theo. But does this now strengthen the model in which Liverpool have built and operate with FSG, with Michael Edwards as the technical director, that actually Liverpool have a self-sufficient squad? Connor's already said that the first teamers are world-class players. No one can come away from that. But the other squad players often are sold to therefore supplement new players coming into the team.
Yeah, Liverpool have been very shrewd with how they've gone about business, and it to their benefit. They don't need to go and spend big money every single summer. What would essentially be a revamp of the squad. I think that's the only reason we're sort of talking about panic with Manchester City, because they didn't replace Vincent Kompany and the squad looks weak, but it's still very strong when you go through player by player. Yes, they need a centre back, but the back four, granted, you could probably improve the fullbacks. They're still decent fullbacks. They've got good midfield options. They've got good attacking options. It's just age catching up a little bit. But then when you've got, say, Gabriel Jesus as a deputy for Sergio Aguero, then it's more of a fluke this year that they've been so far behind. They will turn it on again. But whereas Liverpool, they're sort of can be comfortable that their players are reaching their peak now or in the next 2-3 years, and they can be comfortable with the fact that they are going to progress there. And then when these players like, say, Mohamed Salah, Sadio Mane, when age catches up with them a bit, well, then you're going to be turned into your Javier, Curtis Jones. But just because Liverpool have got the quality there now and they've got these talented younger players coming through, that doesn't mean they're not going to spend when the right deal was there. They're just not going to go and break the transfer record every single summer and bring in 10 players every single summer. They'll do what's right for the squad. And when the minimum work that needs to be doing to take it to the next level, it's fine. Whereas Manchester City, whilst we've seen big spending sprees from in the past, that was to get them to this platform they're at now. Now they're only going to be bringing, 3 or 4 players most. I can't see them making a massive spending spree to revamp the whole squad just because they can.
Yeah, Gorsty suggested before, Connor, that come back to you on this one, that Liverpool, obviously, their idea and the way they operate probably won't change just off the back of this ruling. And said there with Theo that a lot of it is done by using surplus players, I suppose, in the squad to sell the money to bring others. And I suppose one who's into that category, a piece you've written this afternoon on the Liverpool Echo website, is Dejan Lovren.
Yeah, well, the news broke last night that Zenit St. Petersburg were interested in Lovren. They're the Russian Premier League champions. They're obviously a well-known team playing the Champions League. Yeah, they were interested, but they hadn't made contact with Liverpool about initiating a transfer. Then found out this morning that Zenit believe that Lovren, only a year left on his contract. Actually, Liverpool have the option to extend that. They have a clause in his contract to extend it by a year, which essentially means they're going to be keeping. Then they're going to look to activate that at the end of the transfer market. So they essentially can keep Lovren until the summer 2022, which with any prospective suit will drive the price up in the summer. And yeah, he could well be one that's on his way. But yeah, he'll be leaving with everybody's best wishes if he does go.
Yeah, he's a player, Gorsty, who came to obviously leaving last summer, and I suppose it does just show that the shrewd way in which Liverpool operate, that a club gets interested and then all of a sudden Liverpool have this ace up their sleeves that they can protect their asset, put another 12 months on his contract and make sure they get the best possible price.
Yeah, I think that's like a standard thing across the board for Liverpool, actually, because I know that they certainly have a similar situation with Alisson Becker and possibly Virgil van Dijk as well. But yeah, it's an interesting one with Lovren. I don't think Jurgen Klopp would be in any rush to sell him. He's always quick to kind of talk about how good he is. And okay, he's not Liverpool supporters' favourite, as he fair to say he's had his critics over these. But for a player who played the final in 2018, he was Liverpool's best player in the Champions League final that same year. To have him as a backup is no great hardship. And I think if Lovren push for a move this summer, then I think Klopp would be happy to keep him on the books and play him as a squad player next season. But if he does agitate to move, if he does feel at the age of 31, I think he's turning this month, if he feels that he wants to play in the first team ball at a big European club, then he might kind of force a move through, and then Liverpool are going to have to go into the market, aren't they? Because they can't just keep getting rid of players and thinking that these players don't need to be replaced. I mean, I think we've seen the likes of Sepp Vandenberg and Keanu Hoover at times this season, and of course they're great prospects, but I don't think either of those two are ready to step up to the first team on a regular basis at this point. And I think if Lovren does move, then Liverpool will have to kind of go into the market at some stage. And we know that money is probably going to be tight, and that there's a kind of less is more approach at the moment because of the situation that they're in as a squad. It's fairly settled, but I think a lot does depend on Lovren in terms of bringing in another centre back. Because I don't think Joel Matip can be relied upon too much. He seems to be injured, more often than not at this particular part of his career, and Liverpool can't afford to be going into games that matter with significance riding on them, with just Lovren, with just Gomez and Van Dijk fit. So I think that will be an area that Liverpool have to look at if Lovren does move on and send another club for him.
I only think the one to consider would be Fabinho in that position, because obviously he can play centre-back and has played centre-back, as we've seen. I think if Lovren were to move on and wasn't a potential player of good enough standard to come in as backup, because as you say there, Lovren is a serious player to be fourth choice centre-back at any club, really. World Cup finalist, Champions League winner, World Cup winner, Premier League winner. He might have played much in the last season, but he's there. He's in that squad. He's part of it. And, he's been a very loyal servant for Liverpool, since 2014 when he came from Southampton. To drag himself back after the Tottenham game and things like that, his mentality superb. So if he was to leave, you've got to get one in of that same standard. And I think if that wasn't available or for the right price in the market, I think then you've obviously got Fabinho, and Liverpool might have to think about Fabinho as cover maybe even until January. It's an interesting situation for sure.
And interesting the parallels to Manchester City, because that's effectively what's cost them this 20-odd point gap in the league this year. They lost Vincent Kompany. They didn't replace him. Laporte got injured. They've had to play Fernandinho into back all season. Rodri had games. So they had their options limited, whereas if they had Dejan Lovren as a fourth-choice centre-back, it had probably started most of the games this season. And with Lovren, granted, he's had his iffy moments so far this season, Watford being, I think, his last start. But the centre-back's probably the most important position in terms of game time, where you need those constant runner games to forge that relationship with your fullback, with your goalkeeper, with your centre-back, and to just get it level, the top level. It's not somewhere where you can go in one game, drop out the next, and without your standards slipping. You need to play consistently to have your top level. And we've seen time and time again, when Dejan Lovren has a run of games, he is a good centre-back. Same with Joel Matip. But when they're in and out of the team because of injury, that's when the standards start to slip. And that's one of the reasons why Virgil van Dijk is so, so good, because he doesn't miss any games at all. So he can just stroll through season after season.
Yeah, Saturday, so Liverpool are in action at Anfield. Burnley, the visitors. Gorsty, you were there, and well, Liverpool didn't keep up their 100% winning record at Anfield, and I suppose be quite disappointed that it ended in the way it did at Anfield on Saturday.
Yeah, massively. I think that run dates back to January 2019 when Liverpool were held by Leicester, and for it to come to an end in such a fashion, it's just massively frustrating and disappointing, I think, because Burnley should have been, Liverpool should have been out of sight. Burnley barely got out of their own half for much of the game and have somehow rescued the points. And kind of just, it's testament to the character and the brilliance of Burnley, but they're such a little outfit. They don't really have too much quality. Jay Rodriguez is decent, and Dwight McNeil looks like a good prospect. But beyond that, you're struggling to think of anyone who's a real star in that team. And somehow they've come to Anfield and for the point. And now it's one draw and 24 wins from the last 25 games at Anfield, 17 this season and one draw. It's a shame that Liverpool couldn't go the entire season at Anfield, with a 100% record, because performances have been good enough to deserve that. Can't really think of too many games when Liverpool were lucky to get out of a game at home where they didn't deserve the full 3 points, and thinking possibly Leicester in October when they needed a pretty much 90th minute penalty from James Miller. Other than that, will have been utterly dominant at Anfield. So a real sour note Saturday afternoon, and it's kind of just like a sleepy game that no one could really be too up for, and there was plenty of interest. Kind of sheeped onto the pitch, particularly second half. It was almost just like Liverpool, but we're 1-0 up. We're probably going to win this game in first gear, and they were proven wrong. So yeah, we know the title's won and whatever else, but it was a disappointing afternoon, I thought.
Yeah, Connor, does it underline just how big, I suppose, the task and how difficult it is with winning the league with, 7 games to go for Liverpool, as they did, reaching this 100-point target wasn't going to be a case of easy does it and that they were going to get it done, because I suppose since winning the title, there was the game away at the Etihad, there was the 2-0 home win over Villa, where things only really got going in the final stages of the 2 early goals got their way against Brighton, although there were a few bits of sloppy play in that one, and now a 1-1 draw with Burnley, that you can just feel that intensity perhaps isn't quite where it was when the title was still there to play for. Yeah,
Liverpool play a brand of football that is so intense. They've made the mark by playing on the final line of the game every 90 minutes. They play every single kick and live in that, and they've done that for nearly 3 seasons on the bounce. I think after getting a final trophy over the line, the one they really, really wanted, there was obviously going to be a relapse. You can't keep up that level of intensity. Last season, the City-Liverpool challenge in a 1-point finish, they only finished in such high points because they were just putting each other to win all the way. Now Liverpool are so far clear, it would be difficult to go into that Burnley, take for instance the Burnley game, go in that really intense, like we desperately need this 3 points. Records are amazing, the record's lovely, and they're going to want the rest, of course. But the most important thing is the trophy at the end of the day. The title win is getting that over the line. It's way more important than anything else. They still obviously have the opportunity to do the record point total, and that's still there. But yeah, it's difficult 4 games out to really get bang up for a Burnley game with the league having been won for so long as well. It's a totally understandable thing. And you look at so many teams in title wins gone by, and the few games after, there's losses and draws littered in there, just because there is just that, release almost that it's done.
Yeah, look at the shot count of Liverpool, 9 shots on target. Nick Pope was probably the standout player on the pitch with the saves he made, certainly to stop Mohamed Salah a couple of times. Seen a fair few fans talking after the game saying that, well, it's another game that emphasises Liverpool's need for more creativity or another striker maybe to come into the club. Is that a fair accusation to label at them, or was this just, I suppose, a one-off in which his goalkeeper out of his?
It's probably a mixture of the two. I think it's important to remember that the whole season, pretty much, Liverpool have been very close to the wire in games, and it's just because of the high standards that normally games where you would expect them to drop points because it's been meandering towards the end, they've now found a late winner, whether that's because of the Anfield crowd or away fans, whatever, they've always found to win when they needed to late on. But that's not normal throughout a season to happen every single time. This is probably the first time in a game where Liverpool haven't been leading and you've thought, yeah, it's just not going to be their day. Like looking at the chances Mohamed Salah had, even that great volley in the first half, most of his shots were falling on his weaker right foot. And then a few from both him and Mane where it's straight at the keeper, or Firmino scuffing one that goes off the post. It's very rare that Liverpool's front three, all of them are misfiring and they're not on their game. So I don't think Liverpool are desperate in need of a new addition there to liven things up, because you are going to have this one off day every so often. And if it's once, twice in a 38-game season, you're probably still going to win the league, as Liverpool have done this year. And not as though they don't have talent in reserves. Granted, Jurgen Klopp's probably not going to turn to Xherdan Shaqiri before the end of the season if he is going to move on, but he might be a player they look to replace, and there'll be that option there in reserve. They've still got talented youngsters. They've still got a lot of quality in that squad. And you're not going to say for like Arsenal in midweek, well, Salah's not going to score again, Mane's not going to score again, Firmino's not going to score again. You're an Arsenal fan. You're expecting at least one of them to score, aren't you? So the quality is there. It's something to worry about.
Yeah, if you're an Arsenal fan, eh? Gorsty, looking at the lineup, Curtis Jones was given his first Premier League start, but another player I want to ask you about, Theo, there, Roberto, from now just one game away from perhaps going through the whole Premier League home season without scoring at Anfield. Not something that you associate with the Liverpool number 9, and he did have a big chance against Burnley as well. You wonder how much he's weighing on his mind.
Yeah, that's such a strange record, isn't it, to think that Liverpool are currently 21 points clear at the top of the Premier League. They've won the league in the quickest ever time of 31 games. They've only lost 2 games all season, and number 9 hasn't scored at home. It's such a strange juxtaposition almost. But yeah, I mean, he obviously brings a lot more than just goals to his game. He's not the chief goal in this team. Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah scored more than him last season. Salah scored more than him the season before. But at some point, it's probably going to start weighing on his mind, you would think. I mean, more of a critic is needed than not goals, and most of his goals have come from home. It's not as though he hasn't scored at all. I mean, he's been responsible for some important goals away from home. Can't remember how many points it is exactly that his goals have contributed to away from home in terms of like the pace of winning goals. But you can go Palace, Tottenham. There was another one, Wolves, just off the top of my head. And obviously the goals he scored in Qatar that won the Pooler Club World Cup in the semi-final and the final. So it's not as though he's had a completely barren run, but at some point that's going to start weighing on his mind. You would think it's going an entire season without scoring at Anfield is not great, is it, by any strikers? We would strikers, and Firmino obviously a lot more than that. But yeah, I mean, hopefully he can kind of end the season on a high note at home against Chelsea next week, or this week even, because it's just strange, and it's one that kind of you don't watch Firmino regularly, you're probably thinking that that's a ludicrous stat and why is he anywhere near the team, but obviously it does bring a lot more than that. So hopefully he can sign off on a high note this week.
Yeah, you make it, Connor. Of course, coming up next, a trip to Arsenal. Firmino has been doing it away from home. I think it's 8 Premier League goals that he's scored away from home, but we're still, I suppose, waiting to see if Takumi Minamino is going to get a run in the side, and whether that be a game that might be suited to him, giving him the chance to be that creator through the middle, as well as someone who might be able to pose a threat when he does get in on goal.
Yeah, certainly. I'm sure we'll come on to team selections and decisions in a minute. I wouldn't be overly surprised if we see Minamino, to be honest, because I think Klopp will want to give him Premier League game time before the head of next season, because there's no real substitute for competitive Premier League games. No matter how much you try and replicate that within teams in training or anything else. particular regards to Firmino, I'm personally not worried. As you say, if you watch Liverpool every week, you can see what Firmino gives to the team. You can see when he comes on, the space he creates for people, what he does, and he's just played one step ahead of everybody else. The record score at Anfield is odd, but I guess if you probably look back through all the games, hitting the post, scuffing the shot, it's just little unlucky bits and pieces. But yeah, I wouldn't be worried about Firmino just yet.
Moving ahead to the Arsenal game then, Theo, it is the 6th game in 3 weeks since the 4-0 win over Crystal Palace. And I suppose Liverpool, though, travel to the Emirates Stadium and will be running their hands at what they'll come up against, certainly defensively.
You'd hope so. When Liverpool's front three were on the top of the game, they're a match for the best defences in Europe, and they're going to play one of the most average defences in the Premier League, so they should cope fine with this. And I'd like you to take your Arsenal hat off, please, with, should Roberto Firmino get dropped? You know very well how much he loves playing against Arsenal. He scores against them pretty much every time he plays against them. And then it was shoddy from Arsenal yesterday, wasn't it, in the derby? David Luiz making yet another mistake for yet another goal. He was at fault for a penalty against Mohamed Salah back in August, and he couldn't take him out for Salah second. If he has another game like that, Liverpool could probably get 4 or 5 goals in this one if they're on top of the game. Sort of game that do raise the levels at. Arsenal, they're not really got this personality with them at the moment. Mikel Arteta's trying to implement a new style. Can't really decide how they play. I think they've gone back to 3 centre-backs, but that seemed to be just because David Luiz is a bit of a car crash, so they needed that extra protection for him, and it's not done the job. They've got some good players. The youngster Saka looks very good. The front 2, 3, if you want to throw Pepe in there, they've all got talent. Aubameyang, Lacazette, great goal from Lacazette yesterday. But it's like Liverpool 5 years ago. There's good players there, but it's not enough to challenge for the Champions League. It's not enough to challenge for Premier League titles. So I said this before the Burnley game, when Liverpool are on the day, they're going to win, and I jinxed it there. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. If Liverpool are on top of their game, they're going to get a comfortable win against Arsenal.
Yeah, I suppose interesting point from this course. He was rested on Saturday, but Trent Alexander-Arnold will surely start. And up against Aubameyang at the Emirates is probably as tough a test as he could wish to get in the Premier League, isn't it?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I think there's a school of thought that Aubameyang's probably better through the centre, but he can't play out wide, can he? I mean, he's one of the Premier League's best goal scorers, isn't he? And I think that is going to be an interesting one. I think Arteta started Aubameyang, Lacazette and Pepe, didn't he, on Sunday, and they haven't really had much of a chance to play as a trio. The 3 most expensive players in Arsenal history, but I think beyond that, I have to say it is a really average Arsenal side. It's probably the worst one I've known in my lifetime, if I'm honest, when I think of the great Arsenal sides of the late 90s, mid-90s, and then obviously through to around about the mid-2000s, with so many great players at the moment. They're nowhere near that. And as Theo mentions, the defence is, every time I seem to watch them, it's just a comedy of errors. And I think singling out David Luiz, I think that was a little bit harsh for the goal yesterday. I didn't really think that was his fault. But really, when I see against Manchester City, when he came on a couple of weeks ago and he was up the wall from start to finish before he got sent off, Liverpool can prey on that kind of vulnerability. If they arrive at this game with the kind of mentality that it matters and it means something, then I think Liverpool should come away from North London with maximum points.
And just on what Gorsty says there, Connor, Arsenal aren't really a team for Liverpool to fear any longer. The sides over that, I suppose, that last 5-year period Theo speaks about really have swapped places in the pecking order. Liverpool unbeaten in 10 games against Arsenal. And do find the back of the net looking through it. I can see actually from the last 10 games, they've only not scored at least 3 goals in a game twice.
Yes, they're always pretty goal fest, aren't they? And especially recently, Liverpool had many in response. I think, as Theo mentioned, Liverpool always seem to raise their level against Arsenal. I don't know if that's because of historically or because of the name, because of where you're going. It's a big 6 club, we'll still call them. But no, they go there. It's a decent win. If you get a good result against Arsenal, it's like a good thing to take you through into the next couple of games, and it feels like a big win, even though maybe it isn't such a big win beating a mid-table side at the moment. But yeah, I think the front line, there's problems there for Liverpool. You know, you've got Aubameyang, you've got, like I said, you saw him score yesterday. They're decent and really strong, but midfield wise, defensive wise, as the boys have mentioned, it's just a bit of a car crash at the moment. And I think the likes of Mane and Salah be chasing down Jamie Vardy in this game.
Yeah, looking forward to doing the score prediction in a bit to come. But before we make any predictions on the scoreline at the Emirates Stadium on Wednesday, I want to get the three thoughts on this 100-point target. First of all, Gorsty, is it something Liverpool do have on their minds that they are going for? And two, they need to get 7 points from the last 9 available. Do you think that they will get across that line and get the 100 points?
Not sure, actually. Given the way they played lately, you'd be struggling to suggest with confidence he could do it. But it is a motivational factor. Jurgen Klopp has actually admitted that. He said, how could it not be? But it's almost like a chicken and egg situation, because you don't get the performances without the motivation, but you don't get the points if you're not performances in. So it's how does that kind of manifest itself in the players? I mean, for me, I think it'd be a shame if they didn't get it, because I think this team, as I've said many times, deserves to be recognised as something more than just champions. They've still got 100-point tally that they can chase down for the Juventus set in 2014. I think that's probably the bare minimum that they deserve, and it'd be a shame to see it fall away in the final few weeks of the season when the league was already wrapped up and they were playing with no fans, and there was a drop of intensity that was only natural because of the circumstances. Because when it's mattered and when there's been a crowd and an atmosphere, when there's been something riding on it, Liverpool have shown up and really turned in big performances. So we just need to kind of carry that on for the next 3 games. I think they'll win on Wednesday night. I think they should beat Newcastle at St James's, but the tough one is the Chelsea at home, because they're obviously still fighting for themselves, and Liverpool last couple of games in Anfield have been a little dishevelled and disinterested at the time. So it's going to be tough, certainly, but I think that they could move on to 96 points by the time that Wednesday's through.
Theo, what do you think on it?
I keep changing my mind on whether they can do it or not. I do think that it is a target for them. It's obviously, when you've got this whole season, it is that ultimate prize to be the greatest ever, and that's what they will get for it once the invincible potential went. But then before this weekend, I thought the chance, after the Burnley game, I thought the chance had gone. I thought that was now too many drop points. The style's not there. You see Chelsea go and get absolutely annihilated by Sheffield United, and it's like, Liverpool could potentially do the same to them at Anfield as long as they're on their game. It's just whether they can raise those levels again. They've got one of the toughest runs left in terms of name. You think, well, Arsenal is still a name, Chelsea is still a name, and Newcastle, they're another team that they can turn it on sometimes, but then go missing in other games. We could easily be saying these are 3 draws, and we could easily be saying these are 3 comprehensive Liverpool victories. Whether they do it or not, I think it depends how they start games now. Like we saw against Brighton, if they get an early goal, that goes, oh, fine, we'll put in a bit more effort now. We can turn up. It gives them something to build on. Whereas if it's slow and it's late on, you're more likely to settle for a share of the spoils. If it was a normal season and fans were still there, I reckon Liverpool would have definitely got the points to break City's record. Now it just depends on how they're going with the lineups. Yeah, substitutions coming. So we still play 5. So whether Jurgen Klopp is going all out for the last 3 games and still wants it, or if he's just happy with what Liverpool have already achieved.
I think the only couple of things, that's just a couple of factors at play. As we've said, Liverpool seem to raise their level against Arsenal. Any really scenario, I think they'll probably do the same on Wednesday night. Liverpool going to lift the Premier League title at Anfield against Chelsea. They're not going to want to do that off the back of a disappointing game, frustrating game. The history against Chelsea, they're going to want to put one in for Henderson without a doubt. And then Newcastle in the final game of the season, if that points total is within reach, if they're on 99 heading to Newcastle, I just don't think any way of not coming away with a victory. Just a win gives you that whole best season ever. So I have every belief they do it, but I am ever the optimist.
Yeah, of course you are the optimist on the Blood Red panel. Well, let's do our team selections then. And Gorsty, I'll let you kick us off with your back 5 for this game.
I don't see any reason to change, to be honest. Back 5 is Alisson, Trent, Griezmann and Robertson. I thought was excellent in the side on Saturday, particularly first half. Scored a great goal, didn't he? And it's good to have him and Mane back down the left-hand side after missing most of the Brighton game because they just had so much of this Liverpool team going forward. So, that's my back five.
He wasn't too happy with the ref after the game, was he, Andy Robertson? But less said on that, the better. Trent then coming back into the side for Gorsty Connor after Nico Williams has started the last two games. Of course, Brighton's playing at left back, but you would fully expect Trent to come back in for this, wouldn't you?
Yeah, without a doubt. Obviously, Nico Williams is fitted in seamlessly, but Trent is back in for these last three games if Liverpool are going for this, without a doubt.
Theo, who's going into the midfield three?
They're going to ask me about goalkeeper, and I was going to campaign for Andy Lonergan again. Might have to wait for Newcastle for that one. Midfield three, Naby Keita's coming back in, isn't he? He was on the bench at the weekend. I think Jurgen Klopp's team selection against Burnley very much with these next two in mind. The fact that he did drop out and Naby Keita dropped out. But then your options are somewhat limited elsewhere because I think James Milner's got a knock again. I would like to see Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain against his former club. He needs to find some form, but then it's whether Jurgen Klopp really wants to put Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain in the same midfield again. Gini Wijnaldum hasn't been in his best form since the restart, so Fabinho's the deeper midfielder. So I'll probably say that's my trio with Oxlade-Chamberlain, just because I can't see Curtis Jones starting now. I think he's going to go more for the tried and trusted, the senior options.
Gorsty, what do you make of that? And Naby Keita not starting at the weekend. We all on Friday seem to be dead set that Naby was probably in possession of the jersey in the midfield.
Yeah, I think that was just done down to obviously giving Curtis Jones a chance in his first Premier League start at Anfield, because I don't think there's room in a game like midfield for two of those two players, attacking midfielders who always want to get on the front foot and drive forward. So it's either or. And obviously, Keita's the more experienced player, and at the moment he's the better player. But I think Klopp just wanted to give Jones his first taste of it after coming off the bench. I'd bring Keita back for this one. I think he was a little bit hard done by, really, given the form he's in. But obviously, Klopp had other ideas. And then Wijnaldum and Fabinho for me, yeah.
Connor?
Yeah, as the boys said, I think Keita's a bit unlucky, but with the games coming thick and fast, I think it was only literally with this in mind anyway, to be honest. But yeah, Wijnaldum, Fabinho, I think Fabinho's been excellent since the restart, to be honest. And you need someone else solid in there. I think Wijnaldum's your best option, because we discussed Arsenal's attacking line, and we'll need a couple of defensive-minded midfielders to complement Keita.
And a forward line of Shaqiri, Glatzel and Origi. Of course, is that what we're thinking?
Shaqiri's interesting. He hasn't played since January when he came off the bench for 2 minutes. So I think we might have seen the last of him, if I'm honest. Front three is the front three. We've obviously had the Firmino discussion, but he seems to enjoy it against Arsenal and away from Anfield, so could be the perfect mix for him.
Yeah, through gritted teeth could be the perfect time for him. Theo, are you going with the tried and trusted up front as well?
Yeah, it's got to be. They've all got form against Arsenal. I think they've all got form at the Emirates as well. Unleash them, see what they can do. Firmino loves a hat-trick against Arsenal, so hopefully he can get another one there. He can keep up his record of getting double figures in each season for Liverpool.
Yeah, certainly one to keep an eye out for. And Connor, you're going with the same. So let's get into our match predictions then, our score predictions. Connor, start with you on this one.
3-1 Liverpool.
Gorsty?
I think the high score on 3-2 Liverpool.
And Theo?
Let's go 3-0. So just so we can get Salah close to the Golden Boot, Alisson close to the Golden Glove, Firmino back on the score sheet, etc., etc.
Well, I'm going to sit on the fence and say Desmond 2-2. I think I'm being optimistic with that one, but we'll have to wait and see how it does play out. Of course, you can keep across all of the build-up to the game, including Jurgen Klopp's press conference on Tuesday, over on the Liverpool Echo website. Ahead of the game, we're Behind Enemy Lines podcast on our podcast platforms. If you can like, rate, review, subscribe, share, wherever it is, whether that be on YouTube or wherever it is you get your audio on demand. But from Guy Clarke, Connor Dunn, Theo Squires and Paul Gorst, thanks for your time and your company here on Blood Red. It's bye for now.